In this video, I'd like to talk about CSS selectors. Now, of course, CSS is key to styling HTML pages, and selectors are key to CSS. CSS is what makes it possible to selectively style an individual element and completely ignore the other ones on that page. And one of the mechanisms that support this architecture is, of course, the selector. Selectors are actually patterns that developers can use to target certain elements that they wish to style. So in HTML, whenever we code an element, there are usually lots of other attributes and values and things like that we put alongside the name of the HTML tag itself. So for example, we can attach a class to a particular element. We can attach an ID, a name. These are all selectors. But what I want to focus on in this video are those attribute equal values, those attributes that we add to HTML elements. Those are not so common, but they provide excellent value when it comes to selecting things on a web page. So whenever we have an element and we have some kind of an attribute attached to that element, we can, or just simply looking or searching for that attribute, it is already a selector in itself. So for example, we might be searching for all of the classes that exist on the page. And if there is a class, then we can apply a particular style to it, or we can search for IDs, etc. Then we can search specific value that attribute has. So for example, the attribute is on the left, the value is on the right, and we can search for all of those elements that have that specific value. We can even search with a wildcard value. So for example, if an attribute exists on the page and it contains a few letters, let's say, then we can search for anything with the value that has those letters in it. Now, the wildcard value is very similar to searching for a specific value inside of a list. So, for example, we may have a particular pattern of letters that we're looking for, and we're simply searching to see if that exists. So value in a list and wildcard value are very similar. We can also search for a particular pattern that starts the value part of the attribute. So, for example, if it starts with the letter VAL, then we know that we want to select those particular elements. And there are a couple more like these, but these are the more important ones. There are some newer types of selectors. So for example, combinators. Combinators the designer to target two or more elements that share a single parent. It allows the designer or developer to target specific columns, for example, that are part of a table. There are also pseudo-class selectors, and these are really special in that they don't really target the element itself, but what they look for, what they listen for, is the state of a particular element. For example, if the element is being hovered over, or maybe a link has already been visited. So these are the kinds of states that these selectors will target. Pseudo-element type of selectors will target items in a list, allowing the designer to focus on a specific item in that list. Even if we have 100 of them, we can focus on just one in the list. And of course, a typical example of this would be displaying data from a database. We never know how many lines there are. But with CSS, we can target, for example, the first item in that list, the last item, or somewhere in between. So my purpose of showing you this particular slide is to show you and make you aware that there are new CSS selectors appearing all the time and that you should be aware of them.